It was supposed to be just another night in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Late-night TV had long served as a comfortable space for celebrities to promote their latest films, joke around, and show a lighter side of their lives. Jimmy Kimmel Live was no different. Millions of Americans tuned in nightly, expecting laughs, light-hearted banter, and celebrity charm. On this particular evening, anticipation was high. Tom Hardy, known for his intense roles in films like Venom, Mad Max, Fury Road, and The Dark Knight Rises, was scheduled to appear as a guest. Fans were eager to hear about his new project, an upcoming gritty psychological thriller titled Depths of Silence. The green room was buzzing with energy. Producers moved briskly, interns double-checked cue cards, and makeup artists dabbed final touches. Tom sat quietly on the guest couch backstage, sipping water and rehearsing a few anecdotes. Despite his tough on-screen persona, Hardy was known to be quite reserved and thoughtful in real life. He had always approached interviews with professionalism, even a certain British charm that endeared him to American audiences. But something was different tonight. Earlier in the day, a tabloid had leaked an audio clip allegedly from the Depths of Silence set. It included a heated argument between Hardy and a production assistant, which quickly went viral. Social media buzzed with debates. Was Hardy another angry, entitled celebrity? Or was the clip taken out of context? Tom, visibly tense, had already addressed the situation through his rep, calling the clip manipulated and out of context. But Jimmy Kimmel, never one to avoid controversy, had other ideas. When the commercial break ended and the show resumed, the audience roared as Hardy walked onto the stage, stylish in a navy blue suit, his signature beard neatly trimmed. Kimmel stood to greet him with a wide grin. Tom Hardy, everyone, the man who can scare you with a stare and win your heart with a smile. The two men shook hands, sat down, and the first few minutes of the interview rolled smoothly. Kimmel complimented Hardy's physical transformation for the role, cracked jokes about British slang, and even asked about Hardy's love for dogs. But as the laughter died down, Jimmy leaned back in his chair, smirking mischievously. "So Tom," he began, glancing at his notes, "let's talk about that little audio clip floating around today. You know, the one." Heated moment on set. The studio audience chuckled awkwardly. Tom's smile thinned. "I'd rather focus on the work, Jimmy," he said, his voice steady. "There's a lot that went into this film." Jimmy grinned. Of course. But I gotta ask, what really happened on that set? I mean, we've all heard the tape. Some people are saying you went full Bane on your crew." More laughter. But this time, Hardy didn't join in. His brow furrowed slightly. "You're not really interested in what happened. You're interested in getting a viral moment. That's what this is about, right?" Kimmel raised his hands in mock innocence. "Come on, Tom. Lighten up. People just want to know the real you. Transparency and all that." Hardy leaned forward, eyes narrowing, his fingers steepled together. "The real me," he said quietly, "isn't found in leaked tapes or internet gossip. I don't perform my humanity for entertainment." There was a palpable tension in the air. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or stay silent. Kimmel, sensing the shift, tried to pivot back to safer ground. "Hey, it's all in good fun, mate. We love you here," Jimmy offered with a chuckle, brushing off the confrontation. But it was too late. Tom's expression darkened. His tone shifted, low, slow, deliberate. "No, Jimmy, you don't get to provoke someone on national TV and then hide behind good fun. You made a choice to bring that up. You wanted a moment. Well, congratulations. You got one." The audience gasped. Even the band behind the curtain stopped playing. And at that moment, American viewers knew they weren't watching just another celebrity interview. Something real, something raw was unfolding. The studio air turned heavy. Every breath, every glance thick with awkward anticipation. A camera operator subtly shifted position. A production assistant whispered nervously into her headset. Even the famously relaxed Guillermo, Jimmy Kimmel's sidekick, looked up from his offstage chair, sensing that this wasn't part of the show's script. Tom Hardy sat stone-faced, his muscular frame coiled tight like a spring. The charming movie star had vanished. In his place was a man clearly done with the games of Hollywood's PR circus. Kimmel tried to recover. Okay, fair enough, he said, throwing his hands up. I get it. You've had a long day. But, this is a comedy show. We joke. We talk. We mess around. I'm just doing my job. Tom let out a humorless chuckle and leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. That's the problem, Jimmy. You think provocation is a job. You think you can poke people, exploit headlines, and call it entertainment. It's lazy. And frankly, it's beneath you. The studio audience murmured, unsure whether to clap, gasp, or stay silent. One brave soul let out an "oh," the kind often heard in middle school fights. Jimmy's face, usually a mask of practiced calm, twitched with a flash of annoyance. Tom, with all due respect, this is my show, he said, his voice now edged. I ask the questions. People tune in for fun, not for lectures. Tom didn't flinch. Then maybe you shouldn't invite people you don't want to understand. Or maybe, just maybe, you should learn when to stop hiding behind a punchline. The crowd had gone from entertained to uneasy. Laughter was replaced with stillness. It was no longer a conversation. It was a clash. Two personalities, two worlds, colliding under the bright lights of network television. You know what? Kimmel said, trying to inject humor into the escalating conflict. Maybe next time I'll stick to actors who don't explode over jokes. Tom's eyes flared. He sat up straighter and leaned in. You call that a joke? He growled. You brought up a distorted, manipulated audio leak during a film promotion, not for the audience's benefit but for clicks, Jimmy. For you. For your damn YouTube algorithm. Gasps rippled through the crowd. And let me tell you something, Tom continued, his voice now rising with raw energy. While you were cozy behind this desk, I was shooting 12-hour days with a cast and crew that gave their hearts to this project. That clip? It left out the part where that assistant was being bullied. I stood up for her. But no one asked that, did they? Because it doesn't sell as well. Jimmy opened his mouth to speak, but Tom cut him off. No, you don't get to respond now. Not after framing me without facts. You want viral? Here's viral. How about you look in the mirror before you grill the next person that walks through that curtain? For a long moment, neither man spoke. And then it happened. Tom stood up, mid-interview, on live television. The audience gasped. Cameras scrambled. The band began to play a confused riff. Thank you, Tom said coolly, nodding toward the audience. To everyone watching at home, go see Depths of Silence. Not because of the drama, but because people bled to make it real. And with that, he walked off the set. The applause was hesitant. A few people stood out of respect. Some booed softly. Most simply stared in shock. Jimmy Kimmel, thrown completely off balance, turned to the camera with an awkward smile. Well, that was Tom Hardy, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after the break. But millions watching at home weren't moving on to the next segment. Social media erupted. Hashtags like hashtag Tom Hardy walks out, hashtag Kimmelclash, and hashtag Depths of Silence immediately began trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Some praised Tom for standing his ground. Others criticized him for overreacting. But no one could deny the power of the moment. America had just witnessed something rare. A celebrity refusing to play the game, and for many, that was the most authentic thing they'd seen on television in years. Within minutes of Tom Hardy storming off Jimmy Kimmel's stage, the internet went nuclear. Clips of the fiery exchange were uploaded to YouTube before the West Coast had even seen the episode. Millions of Americans, many of whom hadn't even planned on watching the interview, were suddenly glued to their phones, laptops, and TVs. Social media timelines lit up with reactions, analyses, and memes. Tom Hardy just went Bane mode on Kimmel fire, tweeted one user with a clip of Hardy's intense stare edited to include dramatic background music. It gained over 3 million views in under 2 hours. I used to think Hardy was overhyped, one TikToker said in a viral video. But after that, respect. Dude stood his ground in a fake, plastic town. Others weren't as sympathetic. Tom Hardy throwing a tantrum on live TV isn't some revolutionary act. Another user tweeted, "It's just another rich actor being dramatic." By midnight, the story had leapt from entertainment gossip to full-blown mainstream news. CNN ran a late-night segment titled, "Hardy vs. Hollywood, an actor's raw confrontation on live TV," while Fox News headlined their midnight scroll with, "Tom Hardy walks off leftist late-night show after Kimmel's provocation." MSNBC took a more psychological approach. Breaking point. Was Hardy's outburst a window into celebrity burnout? Meanwhile, talk radio exploded with opinions. Conservative commentators used the moment to slam Hollywood hypocrisy. "This guy had enough," said one popular host. "Enough of the fake laughs, the phoniness, the ambush questions. Honestly, I wish more people walked out like that." Progressive outlets, however, questioned Hardy's professionalism. "There's a line," a culture critic said. "You go on a talk show, you expect a few jabs. You don't just storm off when someone pokes at you. That's not integrity. That's ego." Back in Los Angeles, inside ABC studios, the mood was less chaotic but equally intense. Producers huddled in Jimmy Kimmel's office trying to figure out how to manage the fallout. Kimmel himself, usually calm and seasoned, paced the room in frustration. "Did you see how he turned that on me?" Jimmy barked, looking at a monitor replaying the scene. "I tossed a softball. He swung it into a monologue." One of his producers, Amanda, a sharp, experienced woman who'd worked on the show for over a decade, spoke up. "Jimmy, it was a bit out of left field. You know how raw things are with these actors right now. That strike, the studio budget cuts, the layoffs. These people are walking emotional landmines." Jimmy sighed and ran his fingers through his hair. "I was just doing my job." "And he wasn't wrong," Amanda added quietly. "That audio clip was sketchy. We aired it for a laugh." Jimmy looked away. He didn't respond. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of the spotlight not as a performer, but as a target. Meanwhile, Tom Hardy had retreated to the quiet of his hotel suite in Beverly Hills. His phone was blowing up. Agents, PR teams, directors, friends. Some were furious. Some were supportive. A few just sent him wide-eyed emojis and gifs of explosions. His longtime manager, George, finally got through on a FaceTime call. "You do know you walked out on Jimmy freaking Kimmel live, right?" Tom sat on the couch, a bottle of water in hand. His tie was undone, and his sleeves were rolled up. "I know," he replied calmly. George sighed. "Well, it's everywhere. Trending #1. Every network is calling. GMA Today, even Tucker Carlson's team." "Let them call," Tom said. "I'm not apologizing." George paused. "You know they'll spin it. You'll be called difficult. They'll say you snapped." Tom met his gaze through the screen. "Then they can explain why I snapped," he said. "Because I'm not letting another suit or talk show host pretend my work and integrity are punchlines." George rubbed his forehead. "You sure you're okay?" Tom gave a slow nod. "More than okay. For once, I didn't play the game." And at that very moment, something unexpected happened. His phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Hey Tom, that was one hell of a moment tonight. I've got a different kind of show. Real conversations. Long form. No edits. Let's talk. Joe Rogan." Tom stared at the screen and smirked. He knew what was coming next. 2 days after the live blow-up on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Tom Hardy's world had transformed. Despite the controversy, or because of it, his new film Depths of Silence saw a 23% increase in pre-ticket sales. People weren't just interested in the movie anymore, they were invested. Fans praised his raw honesty, while critics split sharply between calling him unfiltered and brave, or a self-righteous diva. But no one could ignore the buzz, and Hardy wasn't staying silent either. His next move came swiftly. 89:01 a.m. Pacific Time on the following Friday. The latest episode of the Joe Rogan Experience dropped. Its title was simple, Tom Hardy, The Kimmel Incident and the War on Authenticity. Within minutes, it climbed to the top of Spotify's trending chart. Rogan's studio in Austin, Texas, was far from the glitter of Hollywood. No suits, no cue cards, Just two men sitting across a wooden table with black mics between them and 3 hours of uninterrupted, unscripted conversation, and Tom Hardy, dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans, looked calmer than he had in weeks. "You got balls, man," Joe opened, sipping coffee. "I watched that Kimmel clip like 10 times. Tom laughed, a real one this time. "I didn't plan it, mate. But something inside me said, enough." They dove deep, not just into the Kimmel altercation, but into the pressures of Hollywood, the expectations of public image, and the growing disconnect between artists and the machinery they worked in. "You know," Tom said, leaning forward, "people think actors are fragile because we blow up sometimes. But they don't see the hundreds of moments we don't. They don't see the manipulation, the press junkets, the spin rooms, the questions that are designed to go viral instead of being real." Joe nodded. "I've talked to fighters who say the same thing. You train for years, and then you're reduced to a 10-second clip where you lost your temper or said something stupid. No one wants to understand the why behind it." Tom rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "I lost it on Jimmy because I felt ambushed. But I don't regret it. What I do regret is how long I played along before." They also talked about the depths of silence film, the very project Tom had been trying to promote before things imploded on late-night TV. "It's a story about trauma," he said. "About a soldier who comes home and can't speak. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he can't. The system failed him. And in a way, that story echoed how I felt in this business." Joe was quiet for a beat. "Heavy." "Yeah," Tom said. "And it means something to me. That's why I blew up. Not because of a question, but because it was mocked. That kind of pain isn't material for laughs." The podcast ran over 3 hours, raw and vulnerable. Tom opened up about the dark side of fame, anxiety, the expectations on male actors to suppress emotion, and the hypocrisy in how Hollywood demands both vulnerability and obedience. By the time it ended, Tom had won over even more hearts. The comment section flooded with praise. "This is the most human I've ever seen Tom Hardy. Kimmel lost the plot. This guy is a real one. We need more interviews like this. Less noise, more depth." That night, Rogan's episode reached over 12 million views. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel Live's ratings had dipped for the first time in months. Not drastically, but enough for ABC execs to notice. The following episode felt tense, even to casual viewers. The monologue had no mention of Hardy, and the crowd sensed that something had shifted. Behind the scenes, Kimmel's team was in damage control mode. He was encouraged to make a statement, but everything he drafted came off defensive or flat. Social media was unforgiving. Accusations flew about celebrity ambush culture and clickbait journalism disguised as comedy. Finally, Jimmy sat down for a brief, pre-recorded segment he posted on his Instagram. "Look, I've hosted thousands of interviews. Some go great, some don't. I've reached out to Tom privately, and I respect what he said. I don't always get it right, but I never intend to disrespect anyone's work. Hopefully, we can move forward." The post got millions of views. Some applauded the humility. Others called it too little, too late. But by now, Tom Hardy had become a kind of symbol. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a voice for authenticity, for mental health, for people tired of playing along with a world that demanded performance over honesty. And the cultural tide was turning in his favor. 2 weeks after the now infamous Kimmel incident, Tom Hardy stood in front of a packed auditorium in Chicago. He wasn't there to promote a film or to collect an award. He was there as the surprise keynote speaker at the National Mental Health and Authenticity in Media Forum, a nonprofit conference focused on the evolving relationship between public figures, media pressures, and emotional well-being. He wore no suit, no Hollywood entourage, just jeans, a gray pullover, and a quiet determination in his eyes. The audience, made up of mental health professionals, journalists, artists, students, and even some media executives, rose to its feet when he was introduced. But it was the moment he began speaking that truly silenced the room. "I didn't come here to fix anything," Tom began. "I came here to admit that I broke." The honesty hit like a wave. In that Kimmel moment, I lost it, and maybe some people saw it as disrespect or unprofessionalism. But it was real, and sometimes real looks messy. He paused, I walked onto that show thinking I was doing my job, showing up, smiling, selling a film. But I walked out realizing I hadn't been doing my life. I'd been playing a role far longer than I was supposed to. Not just in movies, but off camera too. The audience was silent, listening. Hardy continued, revealing that he had silently battled with depression in the early stages of his career, pushed down his emotional struggles, and leaned too hard into the tough guy image the industry loved casting him in. They said, "Be strong," and I thought that meant, "Don't feel." They said, "Be professional," and I thought that meant, "Don't speak up." He looked across the rows of faces. But strength isn't silence. Professionalism isn't passivity. And authenticity shouldn't be punished with cancellation. His voice cracked slightly. It wasn't weakness, it was resonance. "And look," he said with a small grin, "I'm not trying to be some new age guru. I still curse too much and drink too much coffee. But if there's one thing I want people to take away from this madness, it's this: you are not your brand. You are not the smile you put on. You are not your publicist's press release. You're a person, with limits, with stories, with a right to say, 'No, this isn't okay.'" The applause when he ended was not the frenzied clapping you see at award shows. It was something quieter, more respectful, more earned. That speech would go on to be shared across platforms, titled, "Tom Hardy's Wake-Up Call to Hollywood and America." Even 60 Minutes called, asking for a sit-down. But Hardy didn't jump back onto the media circuit. He stayed low-key, selective, focused. He spent the next few months quietly supporting mental health charities, attending underground art theaters, and even teaching a few surprise classes at small acting schools in London and New York. When asked why, he simply said, "If you can't make the space you're in healthier, start helping the people who'll fill it next." As the Oscars season approached, Depths of Silence became more than a film. It became a cultural moment. Critics praised Hardy's performance as the most vulnerable and arresting of his career. But more than that, people rallied behind the message behind it all in a twist that stunned even the most jaded film insiders. Tom Hardy won Best Actor at the Academy Awards that year. He stepped onto the Dolby Theatre stage with a look of quiet disbelief. And when he spoke, he kept it short. To anyone out there feeling like you're only worth what you can sell, stop. You're worth so much more. Don't let this town, or any town, take your voice. He looked directly into the camera. "And Jimmy," he added with a half smile, "if you're watching, next round's on me." But no audio clips this time, yeah. Laughter, applause, a standing ovation. And just like that, Tom Hardy completed the rarest of Hollywood journeys, not from failure to fame, but from fame to freedom. He hadn't just walked off a talk show, he had walked into something bigger. A new chapter not only for himself but for the industry, and for millions watching who finally saw that even the strongest men have breaking points. And that sometimes losing it is exactly how you start to find yourself.